and then build that into the curricula you're trying to teach, what we found is that you accelerate that learning, you accelerate that, hey, when I was in school, I heard about this problem happening, and this is how they went about troubleshooting. And it's been a great resource for us because there's so much knowledge, and we all try to come up with different scenarios. Well, let's just get everybody in a room and just have them data dump everything into one place, in one pool, and then we'll pull that knowledge out as we need it. Build it in while we're teaching. If we just sat down and said, I'm building a course on X, what do you think we need to teach the future? Guys will be more than happy to share their knowledge. You're not putting them in a room and trying to box them in. You just say, hey, we're developing a new course that deals with this. What do you think we should teach them? And most people have been in the industry long enough are good teachers when they don't know that they're doing it. They can be fantastic mentors if you don't say, hey, I want you to mentor me. It's like, oh, no, I don't do that. But hey, have you ever seen this? Yeah, I have seen this, and this is what we did. And then the next thing you know, they're telling you stories about this stuff. For us, we talked about that foundation, how you build. This is an example of a simulation software that we utilize. A lot of you are probably familiar with it. We teach the guys how to actually work on systems, the basic theories and principles of how components work together. What it allows us to do is while they're learning the basics and getting into some of the common troubleshooting, we then build it into an actual schematic of something that they would use out in the field. What this allows them to do is learn how to troubleshoot and learn how to think without having the commercial pressures or the fears of making a mistake. They'll go and they'll pull their meter. They'll actually learn how to set the meters to the right settings. Where do you put your probes? How do you actually do the troubleshooting? Again, it takes away from that, hey, we're on downtime. I need you to figure this out right now. It allows us to teach them on that equipment-specific type stuff. Then what we do is we build it into an actual simulation of systems that they would use while they're working on the rig. Real stuff they would troubleshoot in real time. Excuse me, this is an example of an annular circuit on a BOP control system. They get to see how the system functions in real time, and then we can infuse real troubleshooting scenarios of things that they would see. Failed cylinders, failed switches, failed components. And then we just build it out and make them think about it. We also do what we call reverse simulation training. We just let them go into the simulation without giving them any instruction and see how they figure out the problems and troubleshoot it. Then we step back and reteach them on the areas that they were, I don't want to say wrong, but where they could have gone and been more efficient at it. It's a different way of looking at a standard training program. What that allows us to do when we go back to that 6 to 6 in the different areas is build what we call position-specific training matrices. Again, if you think of the original training matrix that I showed, it was heavily focused on one course for all positions. If you look at it from an assistant subsea, again, my background being subsea, so I apologize for going back to that reference all the time. But the assistants and the trainees, these guys in 6 to 6 really do the same job. Then if you look at the night subsea, the guy that's on the night shift, his responsibilities are different, so we need to teach and train him differently. And then the senior subsea. Does the assistant really need to know the same thing as the senior? If I'm teaching a senior subsea how an annular works, we have the wrong guy in the position. He should already know that. When you break those curriculums down and really look at it, the senior subsea course for us is a mentoring course. Do you know how to plan your maintenance? Do you know how to talk to the company man? Do you know how to do this? It's not, this is how a piece of equipment works. You've been in that position for long enough, you should know how that position works. If you don't, then as a company, you really need to go back and look and see if this person is competent in the areas that he's in. And if not, you have to provide remedial training for it. So for us, why is this training so effective? Because what we do is when you look at competency development and competency-based training, it lines up perfectly with the OJTs that the industry is looking at. If we're teaching somebody how to do their job, instead of teaching somebody how to pass a test, you'll find that the value as they come out of the classroom is much better than what it is when they went in. So many courses that you see nowadays or in the past in the industry, they say, okay, we're going to take time out, we're going to preview what's going to be on the test, because I want you just to pass the test so you can go back to work. If you focus on teaching the operations, the function, the maintenance, the troubleshooting, the best practices, things that these guys are going to see in their careers, when they go back offshore, what we've taught them is exactly what it is that they're going to be doing. It lines up perfectly with the OJTs. It's important to note, though, that just the mere acquisition of knowledge and skills doesn't make somebody competent or a good problem solver. And that's something that I think gets missed a lot of times, is just because somebody has had training, it doesn't make them competent, and it doesn't make them good at actually doing their job. I think we focus a lot of times on this person shows up with a certificate. One of the reasons that we do a lot of testing of all the people that we do a knowledge validation test, is because guys show up with a beautiful looking CV, and it's like, I don't know if you really actually know what you're talking about. So we have a knowledge validation program that we put them through. It's a computer-based program where we actually test them on what it is that they're supposed to know. And we can run the analytics on the back end and show, yeah, well, you're good in these areas, but these areas not quite so much. And we can work with them on the development of it. So it's important, just because we send people to training doesn't mean that in the end they're going to be experts at what they need to do. So it's a constant development that we need to focus on. That being said, my background, again, being military, heavily based on performance-based assessments. Testing people on their knowledge. Let's find out what they really know. Get away from the multiple choice and true-false tests. And what we did is we go to what I call a qualification-based system. When I was in the military, on submarines, you had 9 months to learn the entire ship. It wasn't just your own area. You had to know the entire ship. You had to go through kind of what they call a qualification card, where each card had different areas of the ship that you had to go sit down with one of the senior guys and explain to them how their system worked. And they would ask you questions about it. Show me where this file's at. Show me what happens if this. What do you do if you troubleshoot that? And then you went through the whole ship. Well, at the end of the 9 months, you sat down with a qualification board. And it's something that I carried over when I was a senior sub-C, and even as a superintendent in the office. What we did is we brought guys in and we said, I want you to draw for me a control system. And they would sit there and they would look at you because they think of the entire control system and get overwhelmed with it. And then we would sit back and say, all right, you're a droplet of water. I want you to come through the potable water system, go through the mixed tank, go out the HPU pumps, go down the rigid conduit line, and I want you to be fired out of the lower annular. I want you to draw for me that system. If they could draw the basics of the system, it let us know that they had a general understanding of how the system worked. We were testing them at a higher level of thinking instead of just saying true, false, multiple choice, and seeing if they could just guess and get the right answer. What that does is it also allows you to help test their competency and knowledge by having them troubleshoot the system that they just drew. So once they've drawn it, you turn around and say, okay, well, what would you do if this happens? How would you isolate this? We would even let them draw the wrong system and then ask them troubleshooting questions, and they would turn around and say, oh, hang on a second, I drew this wrong, and then they would go back and fix it. Because again, we're stimulating their knowledge and trying to pull, from a different level, instead more of a cognitive thinking instead of just sitting there trying to figure out, when in doubt, Charlie out, they always used to say, just pick C and be happy with it. So for me, some successful training programs, obviously the military. The reason is everybody starts with nothing. It's a true grassroots program. You're a 17-year-old kid, you know nothing about what you're going to be doing. They take you through a program, and the next thing you know, you're on a submarine, you're on an aircraft carrier, you're working with cruise missiles. High turnover rates. So when we talk about the great crew change, I don't think there's an industry that has more turnover than the military. Guys come up to their end of active obligated services. Every 2 years, you're required to transfer, at least in the Navy, to another ship. They keep you fresh. They keep you constantly learning. You always have new guys showing up every week. Or on the boat, there's guys showing up every week. But in your department, once, twice a year, you're starting to get new guys. But what you found is that the building of the team, it happened every day because you had to be as successful as your team were. What I found in the industry when I first started, so I started in 1998, the concept was if I can stay above you, then if something bad happened, you were the one that got cut, not me. And unfortunately, that's kind of carried over in a lot of ways. Instead of, if I make my entire team stronger, well then the ship will be stronger, then the company will be stronger. It was always focused on the me and not the we. Baseline training programs, everybody starts out the same, which I think is important when it comes to training the future, is we give them all the same training. How do we do that? I don't have the answer for that because there's so many opportunities for training, But I think if we move forward and say that everybody needs to have this foundation, it doesn't matter what company you're with, you'll be able to provide that level of training. And then for us, it was no selection of staff. You didn't get a choice of who showed up. You didn't get a choice of color, where they're geographically located at. They just showed up, and you had to work with them. And we had amazing teams that still are some of the best friends I've had to this point. And then a pilot program. Students start out with no experience. If there's anything more scary than I would hate to be a pilot instructor having to fly with someone who's never flown before. They start off in the classroom, they fly with the instructors, and then they fly by themselves. So if we're going to have a successful training program to be able to put people on the rigs or put people in the facilities, these are some good examples of the level of training that people go through using simulators, using mentors, using the hands-on side of the world. Training and simulation, obviously, the biggest thing that you run into is the budget cut. We're in the fourth quarter now. We hear when we talk to people, hey, we love the programs that you guys have. Unfortunately, we just cut our budgets, and we're not going to start training again until probably Q1, Q2 of next year. A great quote that I've come upon years ago was, gentlemen, we've run out of money, it's time to start thinking. And that happens a lot of times, and for us, this is where the mentoring side of it comes in. So again, if you look at the transfer of knowledge, that critical knowledge that we really need to address in the industry, I say we can do it through the tribal knowledge. Working with the guys every day. What I found, and I was very successful with when I was working on the rigs, is I spent 30 minutes a day working with my crews. And that was 30 minutes after the normal 12-hour shift. So when we had a handover, I spent 30 minutes and sometimes up to an hour sitting down going through different things with my crews. What it allowed me to do is, over a 21-day hitch, I had up to 7 hours of training with them. That's 7 hours of one-on-one training and mentoring that I was giving my crews. No cost, no time, I'm already there, but it's 30 minutes. It was provided operational specific training. We're talking about what do we do on the rig, the equipment that we work on. It allowed for the what-if scenarios. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed this type of training is because I was going in, they were coming out. What would happen if you went to increase the pressure on the tensioners and the ball valve didn't shut? What are you going to do? Don't tell me now. When I come back out tomorrow, I want you to take me out, show me the valves, show me on the schematic, show me what you would do, because these are real operational type scenarios. And it also developed the system knowledge and troubleshooting skills, because I was forcing them to go out and learn their systems. With Facebook and all these other, I'll call them distractions that the guys like to have, I knew that if they did nothing more than do their PMs and have an answer for me tomorrow morning, I was fairly happy. At least I was training and developing the guys on a constant basis. And more so, it was free. It was free training that even if the company said, we're going to send nobody else anywhere, I knew that I was giving my guys, knowledge that they could use. When the BOP was on deck, one of the things that would happen is, regardless of the situation we were in, if I saw something that I thought the guys needed to know, I stopped everybody else's work and I said, come down here, I want to show you something for a minute. It's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. I wasn't afraid to say, look, I've never seen this before, but I think it's important that all of us see it together. Or this is something that's very common. I want you guys to see it so the next time you see it, you understand what it is that you're looking at. Training is a huge industry. It's something that, when done right, can really change the development of the workforce. But it's important to know, if we don't build the foundation of learning, that knowledge, KSAs and the SNAs and Cs will always be an issue that we're going to have. It'll always be an issue. And that's all I have for today. I appreciate your guys' time.